Howard Granger sat on the edge of his creaky twin bed, fingers trembling slightly as he counted the bills for the third time. The morning sunlight slipped past the dusty blinds, laying stripes across the worn hardwood floor and the faded wool rug Clara had picked out decades ago. 100, 200, 4, 6. His eyes narrowed then. No matter how many times he went over it, the total came up short. Exactly $1,000. Gone. He exhaled a slow breath, setting the stack of bills neatly on his nightstand. The wallet itself, a soft, cracked leather rectangle with his initials pressed into the corner, had been with him for over 50 years, ever since Clara gave it to him on his 30th birthday. It had never failed him. Never lost its place on the same spot beside his water glass, never once gone missing, until now. "Maybe I spent it," he mumbled, rubbing his temple as if that might help sort through the hazy memory. "Maybe I forgot." But even as he said the words, he knew they weren't true. He hadn't bought anything beyond groceries and the occasional lunch at Benny's diner. Howard leaned forward with a groan, stiff joints protesting, and began checking under the bed, behind the dresser, even inside the old winter coat hanging near the door. Nothing. No stray bills, no wads stuffed in a pocket. Just a growing sense of unease settling deep in his chest. From downstairs, the smell of bacon and brewed coffee floated up. Rebecca's doing, no doubt. She always made a hearty breakfast when Wade was around, and lately, Wade was always around. The stairs creaked under his weight as Howard descended, each step bringing back more doubt. Was this just age catching up with him? Was he finally becoming one of those forgetful old men who misplace things and start accusing others of theft? Rebecca stood at the stove, humming along to a song playing softly on the radio. She wore a floral apron and her hair was tied back in a ponytail, the same way Clara used to wear hers when gardening. Howard paused a moment just to watch her. His only daughter, full grown now, but still with a hint of the little girl who used to sneak chocolate chips from the baking jar. "Morning, Dad," she said over her shoulder, flipping the bacon. "Coffee's ready." "Thanks, sweetheart." He moved toward the counter, then hesitated. "Becca, you haven't happened to see any money lying around upstairs, have you?" She turned, concern on her face. "Money? No. Why?" "I'm missing $1,000, he said gently. "From my wallet. I've checked every coat drawer, cushion, and sock. It's just, gone." Rebecca blinked. "1,000? "Yes," he nodded. "I had it in cash, tucked away, you know how I am. Old habits." She set down the spatula and wiped her hands nervously on a dish towel. "I haven't touched your things, Dad. Maybe you spent it and forgot? Could it have been for something important?" Howard forced a small smile, though her suggestion pierced him more than she likely realized. Maybe. But in his mind, he knew. That money hadn't walked away. Someone had helped it along. "Money problems again?" Wade's voice cut through the kitchen as he entered, still in yesterday's work clothes. His dark hair was tousled, and his boots left faint marks on the freshly mopped floor. He leaned against the doorway, folding his arms. "Wade, you haven't been in my room, have you?" Howard asked casually. The younger man's posture stiffened. "What are you implying, Mr. Granger?" "Not implying, just asking. I bust my back working 16-hour shifts to take care of this family. You think I need to steal from you?" Wade's voice rose just enough to shift the energy in the room. Rebecca stepped between them, her voice soft. "Let's not do this, okay? I'm sure there's an explanation." But Howard had seen it, that flicker in Wade's eyes, the too quick defensiveness, the overplayed anger. It wasn't the reaction of an innocent man, it was the reaction of someone caught off guard. "Of course," Howard said with a nod. "I'm sure it'll turn up." Wade snatched his lunch bag and made for the door. "I'm late." The door slammed harder than necessary. Rebecca placed a hand on her father's arm. "Dad, you've been under a lot of stress since Mom. Sometimes our minds play tricks when we're grieving." He nodded, not trusting his voice. Instead, he walked to the window and watched Wade's truck rumble down Cedar Lane. He wasn't losing his mind. He was being robbed. That evening, they gathered in the living room like a typical family. Rebecca folded laundry while Wade paced near the window, unable to sit still. Every few minutes, he checked his phone or readjusted the blinds. Howard pretended to read the local newspaper, but his eyes remained on Wade. Then came the moment. "Honey," Wade said suddenly, producing a small velvet box from his jacket. "I got you something." Rebecca's face lit up. "Wade, what did you do?" "Just open it." Inside sat a gold chain, delicate and shimmering under the soft lamplight. Rebecca gasped. "It's beautiful. Where did you—" "I picked up extra shifts at the warehouse," he said, puffing his chest. "Worked all weekend, double overtime, dangerous chemicals and all that. But you're worth it." Howard folded his paper. "They pay well for that kind of work now?" Wade nodded quickly. "Time and a half Saturday, double time Sunday. Hazard pay, too. The place off Lincoln Drive." As Wade helped Rebecca clasp the necklace around her neck, Howard's eyes locked onto the receipt sticking from Wade's back pocket. Silverman's fine jewelry. Not the kind of place a warehouse worker shopped on a whim. He did the math. 1,000 gone, 800 spent. The numbers lined up a little too neatly. "You're spoiling her," Howard said, keeping his tone light. "She deserves it." Wade met his gaze. "A man should provide, whatever it takes." Howard went to bed early that night. At least that's what he told them. In truth, he sat at the edge of his bed, wallet in hand, the room quiet but his thoughts racing. From the kitchen downstairs came laughter, then the clink of dishes, then silence. He lay back but didn't sleep. Tomorrow, he would begin planning. He would stop being a victim and start being an engineer again. The next morning, Howard Granger woke before the sun. He lay still in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling where the plaster was beginning to crack in a spiderweb pattern. Clara used to mention it every spring, always planning to repaint. Another thing left undone. But this wasn't a day for patching ceilings. This was a day for precision. Howard sat up slowly, reached for his wallet again. He had taken careful mental inventory the night before, $800 remaining. He recounted it once more just to be certain, then slid it back into its place beside the water glass. No changes, no mistake. After breakfast, Rebecca left for her shift at the supermarket, and Wade, true to form, left shortly after, claiming another long day at the warehouse. Howard watched from the porch as the truck disappeared down Cedar Lane, then went back inside. The house was quiet. Perfect. He poured a second cup of coffee, grabbed the yellow notepad he kept in the junk drawer, and sat at the kitchen table. 43 years as a mechanical engineer in the Pacific Northwest had taught him one thing above all: problems were meant to be solved. Whether it was a failing cooling system or a dishonest son-in-law, the method was the same: diagnose, design, deploy. He wrote the words at the top of the page. 1. Evidence. 2. Confrontation. 3. Resolution. His pen paused on the second word, confrontation. That would be the hardest part. Rebecca loved Wade. She wanted to believe in him, in their marriage, in the promises they made. Howard couldn't take that away without irrefutable proof. He tapped the pen against the table and wrote in capital letters beneath the first step, camera. By 10 o'clock, he was driving toward Lincoln Drive, not to visit any warehouse, but to find something far more useful. He parked outside Tech Stop Electronics, a compact storefront tucked between a laundromat and a nail salon. The neon open sign buzzed in the window. Inside, the place smelled like plastic and fresh cardboard. A young clerk in a company polo greeted him. "Help you find something, sir?" "I need a home security camera," Howard said. "Something discreet, motion-activated, good in low light." The clerk's expression shifted from neutral to intrigued. "We've got a few great models. What's the application?" "Personal," Howard said. "Bedroom. Quiet house. I need clear images, especially at night." The young man led him to a display wall lined with gadgets, each more advanced than the last. Howard listened carefully, asking technical questions: field of view, battery life, file formats. The clerk, initially polite, now looked impressed. "Night Eye Mini Pro," he said finally, pulling a compact black device from the shelf. "It's what I'd use if I were trying to catch someone." Howard examined the specs. 1080p resolution, 140-degree angle, infrared night vision, and real-time mobile alerts. Perfect. He paid in cash. Back home, the house still empty, he unboxed the device at the kitchen table, laying out each piece like surgical instruments. Clara would have called him obsessive. He preferred methodical. Installation took less than an hour. He chose the perfect spot, behind the framed photo from Rebecca and Wade's wedding day. From that vantage point, it had a clear shot of the nightstand and the wallet. He tested the motion trigger, adjusted the night vision settings, and linked the feed to his phone. Then he waited. 3 days passed. Each night, Howard placed the wallet back in its usual spot, slightly open, bills visible, and each morning, the money remained untouched. Until the fourth night. At 2:51 a.m., Howard's phone buzzed. He reached for it in the dark, and opened the Secure View app. The footage began in eerie grayscale. The door creaked open slowly. A figure stepped inside, moving with practiced quiet. Wade. No hesitation, straight to the wallet, hands deft, confident. He opened it, removed several bills, tucked them into his pocket, then paused. Howard's breath caught. Wade picked up the water glass beside the wallet and spit into it, deliberately, slowly, like a final insult. Howard sat frozen, the phone clutched in his hand. Not just theft, contempt. He rewound the footage, watched it again, counted the money, $500, gone. He saved the video to both internal storage and cloud backup. He emailed it to himself, to Frank, his old friend from the firm, just in case. The next morning, Wade was already gone by the time Howard came down for breakfast. Rebecca, cheerful as ever, poured him coffee. "You're up early?" She smiled. "Couldn't sleep," he replied. His voice was calm, but inside, a storm had begun. Howard didn't mention the video to anyone, not yet, not without a plan. Instead, he called Frank. "You got a minute?" "For you, always," Frank said. Howard told him everything, the missing money, the gift, the video. Frank didn't interrupt, didn't react, just listened, the way only a true friend could. When Howard finished, Frank's voice was low. "So, what are you going to do?" "I'm not sure yet. You've got evidence, that's something. But if you expose him, Rebecca's going to be crushed." "I know." "Still," Frank added, "letting him keep doing it, that's not an option either." "No," Howard agreed. "It's not." That night, Howard sat in the living room pretending to watch the news. Wade entered halfway through, smelling faintly of beer. He dropped onto the couch and scrolled his phone. Rebecca came in a few minutes later, kissed Wade on the cheek, and sat beside him. The three of them looked like any normal American family, but beneath the surface, Howard saw the fracture lines, hairline cracks forming where trust used to be. "You've been organizing things in the garage lately, huh?" Wade asked casually. "Cleaning?" Howard replied. "Must be nice," Wade smirked. "Retirement. All that free time." Howard turned his head slowly. "It gives you time to look closer at things. Patterns, habits, strange disappearances." Wade blinked. "Excuse me?" "Nothing," Howard said. "Just thinking out loud." After Rebecca went to bed, Howard stayed up another hour, notebook open on the kitchen table. Next step, confrontation. But not yet. One more test. He tapped the pen twice, underlined the word trap. If Wade thought stealing from a forgetful old man was easy, he hadn't seen anything yet. It was Thursday when Howard Granger returned to the garage with a new purpose. For the first time in months, he felt like his old self again, not the grieving widower, not the passive retiree tiptoeing around tension, but the engineer. The man who solved problems, built things, broke things apart just to see how they worked. Now, he was going to build a trap. He set the box from Prankster's Paradise on the workbench and opened it slowly. Inside sat 2 items, a shock wallet, real leather, nearly indistinguishable from his own, and 300 of hyper-realistic movie prop cash. He lifted the wallet carefully, testing its weight. It looked genuine, even up close. The electric mechanism inside delivered a 9-volt zap, nothing dangerous, but sharp enough to make someone drop whatever they were holding. Howard smiled grimly. Let's see how Wade enjoys this little withdrawal. That evening, he followed the same routine as always. Rebecca cooked dinner, grilled chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes. Wade came home late, claiming traffic, his mood tight. The conversation at the table was light but strained. "Garage looks cleaner," Wade said, chewing too quickly. What have you been working on, old man? Howard wiped his mouth calmly. Just organizing, taking inventory. Never know what you'll find lying around. Wade's eyes narrowed slightly. Right. Rebecca tried to smooth the mood. Dad's been into projects again, like when he rebuilt that model train set for Henry's birthday. Howard nodded. Projects help me think. Wade smirked. What are you thinking about now? Howard met his eyes, calm and cold. Security. The smirk faltered. That night, Howard waited until both bedroom doors were closed. The house settled into its usual silence, furnace humming, wood creaking, an occasional car drifting past the window. At 12:45 a.m., he made the switch. His real wallet, now empty, went into the drawer. The shock wallet, loaded with movie prop money, took its place on the nightstand, half open, just like always. He positioned the water glass beside it, checked the camera. Everything was ready. Then he lay in bed, phone in hand, waiting. 1:57 a.m., the alert buzzed. Howard tapped the notification. The app opened instantly, showing the grainy infrared view of his bedroom. The door creaked. Wade entered. Same as always, slow, careful, practiced. He moved directly to the nightstand. The camera captured every detail in crisp clarity. He reached for the wallet. Snap. The second he opened it, a loud zap burst from the device. Wade jerked back violently, yelping in pain, the fake bills spilling to the floor. What the? Howard clicked on the lamp beside him and sat up. He kept his face calm. Wade, what are you doing in my bedroom at 2 a.m? Wade froze, clutching his wrist. I thought I heard something. Howard glanced down at the scattered fake bills. And what's all this? You hear a sound and come check my wallet? It's not what it looks like. Howard grabbed his phone, thumb already on the video. Want to watch it together? I've got the last 3 weeks logged in here. Wade stepped back, face pale. You're setting me up. No, Howard said. You did that all by yourself. Just then, Rebecca's voice echoed down the hallway. What's going on? Is everything okay? Wade opened his mouth, panicked. Howard raised his voice just enough. Your husband was just helping himself to my wallet again. Rebecca appeared in the doorway, robe clutched around her, blinking against the light. Wait. What? Howard held up the phone. He's been stealing from me. I have video, including him spitting in my water glass. She looked from her father to her husband, then down at the bills scattered on the floor. Wade's expression said everything. Is this true? She whispered. Wade stammered. He's lying. He's trying to make me look bad. He's always hated me. Howard calmly hit play. The footage showed Wade entering the room, opening the wallet, removing the money, and then the spit. Rebecca gasped. She took a step back like she'd been slapped. Oh my God! The silence afterward was total. Wade tried again. Rebecca, No. Her voice cracked but held steady. Don't say anything else. She turned to Howard, eyes glassy with shock. How long? 3 months, he said softly. Maybe longer. Rebecca didn't cry. Not yet. She just stood there, frozen in her robe, watching the man she married transform into a stranger before her eyes. The next day, Wade packed. Rebecca helped in silence. Howard stayed out of the way, letting her move through the betrayal at her own pace. She wrapped her dishes carefully, folded her clothes into boxes. Wade muttered, slammed drawers, cursed under his breath. You'll regret this, he hissed at Howard once, passing through the living room. Howard just nodded. Maybe, but I'll sleep better. When they finally left, Rebecca in the passenger seat silent, Wade behind the wheel, fuming, the house felt empty, but clean, peaceful. His wallet sat on the nightstand once more, untouched. Saturday morning arrived under a gray sky. The truck was gone. Howard Granger stood by the front window, hands wrapped around a cup of lukewarm coffee, watching the empty driveway. Rebecca and Wade had left 2 hours ago, the last box slamming shut, the silence swallowing everything after. No yelling, no dramatic scene, just quiet heartbreak. The air in the house felt lighter, but it didn't feel better. Rebecca hadn't said much after seeing the video. She didn't scream or demand more proof. She just stared at Wade, then nodded like something inside her had cracked quietly. The gold chain she once adored now sat in the bottom of a kitchen drawer. Stolen gift, stolen sentiment. Wade had tried to justify everything in whispers and excuses while packing. I was desperate. Your dad treats me like trash. I only took what we needed. But Rebecca never looked him in the eye again. When she left, she turned to Howard on the porch. I need time, she said softly, to process this, all of it. He nodded. You're always welcome here, just not with him. She hugged him tight, no tears, just a long, steady hold that said thank you, and I'm sorry. By Sunday morning, Howard was alone, really alone. No footsteps in the hall, no clinking dishes, no humming from the kitchen, no fake smiles over dinner. The stillness was both a blessing and a curse. He moved through the house slowly, straightening things out of habit, fixing the crooked photo frame, closing the slightly ajar pantry door, erasing Wade's fingerprints from his world one gesture at a time. But erasing the memory? That was harder. Howard sat at the kitchen table with his old paper calendar, the one Clara had insisted they keep even when smartphones took over the world. He flipped back through the months, the red X's marking incidents like battle scars, mud tracked into the living room, Cleo's, now Wade's, angry outbursts, gaslighting about misplaced tools, the gold chain, the missing money. Each event no longer a question of if, but a matter of how long he tolerated it. He flipped the calendar shut and exhaled. This wasn't just theft, it was betrayal, systematic and slow-burning. Howard called Frank on Monday. His old friend picked up on the second ring. Heard from Rebecca yet? No, she said she needed space. Frank paused. You okay? I'm not sure. Howard stood at the window, watching a squirrel dig through his flower bed. She didn't blame me, he added, but I think she blames herself for not seeing it, for trusting him. That's not on her. That's on him. I know, Howard said, but it doesn't make it easier. Frank's voice was calm. Sometimes protecting someone means letting them fall so they can learn to stand back up. She'll come around. Days passed. The video footage stayed saved, cloud and USB both labeled for Rebecca if ever needed again. Howard couldn't bring himself to delete it, even though he never planned to rewatch it. The moment was burned into his memory. But the spit, that stayed with him the most. Not the money, not the sneaking around, but that vile, deliberate gesture, that hatred for a man who only tried to help. It haunted him. One afternoon, a letter arrived, no return address. Inside, a single sheet of lined paper, Rebecca's handwriting. Dad, I'm staying at Lisa's for now. Wade and I are not talking. He's trying to explain, but I think deep down, I always knew something was off. I just didn't want to admit it. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I should have protected you. Thank you for protecting me instead. I'll come by soon to talk. I just need to figure out what my life looks like now. Love you. Rebecca Howard folded the letter and placed it in Clara's old recipe box. Not because it was food for the body, but because it fed something else inside him. Hope. Forgiveness. That night, he walked into his bedroom, picked up his real wallet, the one that had started it all, and counted the cash, just like old times, only now no hands would touch it but his own. The wallet went back on the nightstand. The room felt safe again. No more cameras, no more traps, just Howard, and a future he could trust. The first time Rebecca came back, it wasn't planned. She showed up on a Thursday, late afternoon, wearing jeans and a navy hoodie Howard didn't recognize. Her eyes looked tired, but clearer somehow. She carried nothing but a small tote bag and a gallon of milk. I thought you might be low, she said, holding it up. Howard stepped back from the doorway. I was. She walked in like she had 100 times before, but slower, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed anymore. The kitchen was cleaner than usual. Howard had wiped it down that morning, out of habit more than hope. The small table was set for one, but he grabbed a second placemat without saying anything. I didn't bring much, Rebecca said. Didn't know if... You don't need to ask, Howard interrupted gently. She nodded, then sat down at the table and pulled out a notepad. I've been writing things down, things I need to say, but none of it feels right. You don't have to read anything, he said. But I do, she replied. because I didn't just ignore what was happening. I defended him. Against you. Howard stirred his coffee. You believed in him. That's not a crime. No. But staying blind when the truth was in front of me, that's on me. She looked around the house, her eyes pausing on the small signs of change. A new clock on the wall, the absence of Wade's work boots, the folded-up cot from the guest room now leaning against the wall. You've been cleaning. Little by little. Looks more like erasing, she whispered. Howard sighed. Maybe. Or maybe just reclaiming. Rebecca took a sip of her tea before speaking again. Wade's staying with his cousin. I haven't seen him since we left. Howard didn't respond. He texted a lot, called. At first I wanted to understand. I thought if I could figure out why, maybe it wouldn't hurt so much. She paused. But there's no reason good enough to explain what he did. Howard nodded slowly. Sometimes bad choices don't come with good reasons, just excuses. Rebecca leaned forward, elbows on the table. I keep asking myself what Mom would have said. Howard smiled faintly. Clara would have punched him. That made Rebecca laugh, a real laugh, not the strained kind he'd gotten used to hearing since December. She never took crap from anybody, Rebecca said, especially not from someone who disrespected her house. Howard looked at her. You get that from her, you know. That strength, that spine. Rebecca's eyes welled. Didn't feel strong. Strength isn't loud, he said. Sometimes it's just coming home. Later, they stood in the living room, staring at the photo wall. One picture had been removed, the Christmas group shot. Rebecca noticed. You took it down? Howard nodded. It didn't feel honest anymore. She walked to the hallway closet, pulled out a small wooden box and opened it to reveal the framed photo. She stared at it for a long time. Then, quietly, she opened the frame's back, removed the picture, and slid it into a drawer. Returning the empty frame to the shelf, she looked over at her dad. Now it's ready for something new. That night, she stayed in the guest room again. No overnight bags, no declaration of moving back, just a toothbrush and a sigh of relief. They didn't talk much the next day, but the silence felt different now, comfortable. 2 weeks later, she brought a duffel bag. No pressure, she said. Just seeing how it feels. Howard offered no conditions, no expectations, just clean sheets and warm coffee. They found a rhythm. Rebecca started helping with errands. Howard showed her how to fix the squeaky pantry hinge. She taught him how to use grocery delivery apps. They weren't the same family they had been in December. But maybe that was okay. On a Sunday afternoon, Rebecca sat beside him on the porch swing. Do you hate him? Howard didn't answer right away. I hate what he did. I hate that he made you doubt yourself. And me. She nodded slowly. But hate him? Howard shook his head. That takes more energy than I have. Rebecca looked down at her hands. I don't know what to do if he tries to come back. You do, Howard said. You just don't want to. She didn't argue. They sat there in silence, the swing creaking gently in the breeze. Then she reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out the gold chain. I want to sell it. Maybe donate the money to a shelter or something. Howard nodded. That'd be a good way to turn something ugly into something good. That night, Howard passed by her room and paused in the hallway. He knocked once. Yeah? Her voice came through, muffled. I'm glad you came home, he said softly. I'm glad you made it a place worth coming back to, she answered. It had been 93 days since Wade last stepped foot in the house. Not that Howard was counting, but when you've spent a lifetime working on machines, engines, tools, factories, you learn to track time in silence, in patterns, in pressure and release. And the silence in the house now? It wasn't tense anymore. It was restful. Every morning began the same. Howard brewed a single cup of black coffee in his old Mr. Coffee machine. No timers, no fancy settings, just hot water, ground beans, and patience. He'd sit by the window, the one facing the maple tree Clara used to love, and watch the street come alive, dogs barking, newspapers hitting driveways, and some mornings, Rebecca's footsteps from the guest room. Sometimes they'd talk, sometimes they wouldn't, but either way, he wasn't alone. The shock wallet still sat in the drawer, not because Howard needed it anymore, but because it reminded him of something important. He hadn't gone soft. He'd defended his home, his name, and his dignity, without yelling, without violence, just clarity, evidence, and resolve. Frank stopped by once a week, brought donuts and gossip from the American Legion crowd. "So, he really spit in your water?" Frank asked one day, shaking his head. "That's twisted." "Yep," Howard said, biting into a glazed twist, "and I drank it for weeks." Frank winced. "I'd have killed him." "That's the thing," Howard said, wiping his fingers on a napkin. "I didn't need to. He did it to himself." Frank leaned back in his chair, impressed. That camera plan was genius. "Engineering never leaves you," Howard smiled. One afternoon, Rebecca came home from the supermarket carrying more than groceries. She had a folder. Inside it, apartment listings, job applications, schedules. "I'm not rushing," she said, "but I wanted you to know I'm looking. For myself, a clean start." Howard studied the pages. Nothing fancy, nothing far, just something hers. "I'll miss you," he said. "I'll visit," she promised. The next weekend she moved into a small one-bedroom just across town, close enough to visit, far enough to be her own person. Howard helped her hang up curtains. She taught him how to use the parking meter app downtown. They laughed more now than they had in months, real laughter, the kind you don't fake to survive. In April, Howard planted new flowers under Clara's garden sign. "Clara's daisies," it still read. He talked to her while he worked, told her about Rebecca, about the house, about how the floorboards didn't creak as much now. "Peace is a funny thing," he whispered. "You don't notice it when it's loud. But when it's real, you feel it in your bones." One Sunday, he sat on the porch swing with a book and a glass of sweet tea. A neighbor waved from across the street. A kid biked by with training wheels squealing. And Howard Granger smiled, not because life was perfect, but because he had something better now. Control. Clarity. A home where no one disrespected him. And a daughter who came back stronger than ever. The past hadn't disappeared. It never does. But it had been sorted, filed away like old invoices in the garage, labeled, understood, no longer haunting. He still kept the camera app on his phone, not to check it, just to remind himself that no matter how small people think you are, how forgetful, how outdated, how weak, you can always take your power back, quietly, decisively, and with your dignity intact. That night, he made himself a pot roast in Clara's old Dutch oven, turned on the Tigers game, sat back in his chair and let the spring air drift through the open window. This wasn't revenge. It was peace, earned, not given. And that was more than enough.